There was a time when Danny Koker felt absolutely untouchable beneath the glowing neon lights of Las Vegas, Nevada. He was the ultimate man in black, defined by his signature bandana, a thick beard, and a commanding voice that could effortlessly turn a rusted automotive shell into a six-figure masterpiece. But behind that unwavering on-screen confidence, behind the high-stakes deals and the carefully positioned reality television cameras, something deep within his life was quietly falling apart. At 61 years old, the true story of Danny Koker is no longer just about classic cars, burning rubber, or lucrative restoration contracts. Instead, it has transformed into a deeply human narrative about immense pressure, profound personal loss, systemic mistakes, long periods of silence, and a grueling fight to rebuild when almost everything seemed ready to collapse around him. To truly understand how this larger-than-life television icon reached this critical turning point, one must look back to the very beginning of his journey, long before the fame and fortune. He was a boy raised uniquely between the loud roar of powerful engines and the solemn, beautiful harmonies of traditional church hymns. Danny Koker was originally born in Cleveland, Ohio, entering a household where gleaming automotive chrome and sacred musical melodies existed side by side every single day. His upbringing was anything but conventional, shaped by two distinct worlds that would eventually define his entire adulthood. His father, Danny Koker Sr., spent his days deeply connected to the competitive world of American automobiles through his employment at the Ford Motor Company. But when the long workday finally ended, the elder Koker stepped directly into a completely different kind of spotlight. He was an exceptionally talented baritone vocalist and skilled keyboardist who performed with highly respected Southern gospel groups, including the legendary Cathedral Quartet, and maintained close professional associations with major gospel names of the era. For young Danny, this striking duality was completely normal, forming the baseline of his daily reality. In one room of their family home, there were complex engine parts laid out meticulously across a greasy workbench. In another room, there were intense musical rehearsals, scattered sheet music, and endless stories told about life traveling on the road. That unique domestic environment naturally created a strange but powerful balance of discipline and creativity in the young boy's developing mind. Discipline came at him from both directions, teaching him valuable life lessons before he even realized he was learning them. Cars demanded extreme patience, manual dexterity, and mechanical precision to function properly. Meanwhile, live musical performance demanded flawless timing, emotional depth, and a commanding stage presence that could hold an audience captive. As a young boy, Danny did not see these as separate or conflicting worlds at all. They were simply integrated parts of his daily life. His childhood summers were constantly filled with the distinct heavy scent of motor oil and gasoline, as he spent hours watching older, experienced men passionately debate carburetors, manifold designs, and torque ratios. His evenings, by contrast, were filled with beautiful multi-part vocal harmonies and long, thoughtful family conversations about performance excellence, faith, and personal commitment. He was certainly not the kind of child who only admired vehicles from a safe distance or through the pages of a glossy magazine. If a machine had wheels and an engine, he possessed an overwhelming desire to know exactly how it worked from the inside out. When he received his very first motorcycle at the tender age of 8, he did not treat it like a simple childhood toy to be played with and cast aside. Instead, he treated the mechanical object like a complex, fascinating puzzle that demanded his full attention. He immediately took it apart piece by piece, studying how each individual component connected to the next. He put the motorcycle back together entirely on his own, not because an adult told him to do so, but because he possessed an innate need to understand the mechanics. That distinct habit of deep investigation and hands-on learning stayed with him throughout his entire adolescence and adulthood. Raw curiosity became his primary teacher, driving him to master skills that others spent a lifetime trying to learn. His father actively recognized and encouraged that mechanical instinct, ensuring the boy always had the resources he needed to grow. Specialized automotive manuals regularly came home in his father's briefcase, and various spare parts mysteriously appeared on the kitchen table for him to examine. Instead of receiving long, boring lectures about mechanics, young Danny was constantly presented with practical challenges that forced him to think critically. His father's philosophy was simple: figure it out yourself, find the solution, and make it work better than before. By the time Danny reached his teenage years, he was no longer just repairing basic mechanical failures. He was actively modifying and customizing vehicles. Engines ran significantly faster and smoother under his capable hands, and standard factory body lines began changing shape to match his unique artistic vision. He learned valuable tricks of the trade from highly experienced local mechanics, but he quickly learned to trust his own sharp instincts just as much as their advice. He did not rely on formal schooling or technical academies beyond the basic shop classes offered at his local school. Most of his real, lasting education happened entirely outside the classroom, spending countless hours under flickering fluorescent garage lights late into the night. At the exact same time, his musical education ran perfectly parallel to his growing mechanical expertise, ensuring he remained a well-rounded performer. He was not just a mechanic's son who happened to like music, he was a highly capable performer in his own right. He stepped onto professional stages at an exceptionally early age, even earning the rare privilege of performing at Carnegie Hall while still a young boy. That incredible experience on prestigious stages mattered immensely for his personal development, instilling a deep sense of confidence in front of large crowds. It taught him precisely how to carry himself with dignity, how to project his voice, and how to command undivided public attention without ever needing to shout. Years later, when television cameras began following him around a chaotic garage, that early stage training would surface completely naturally. He knew exactly how to speak to a crowd, how to pace his words, and how to hold a dramatic moment on camera. One of his most defining early teenage projects was his first car, a classic Camaro that most normal teenagers would have been absolutely thrilled to simply own and drive to school. Danny, however, saw the vehicle through a completely different lens, viewing it as a blank canvas for his personal expression. He immediately dismantled the entire vehicle, completely reworking the engine components and reshaping the body into something closer to a street-ready high-performance machine. It was an incredibly bold and risky project for someone so young to undertake, but it ultimately proved an essential point to him. He realized early on that he did not need anyone else's permission to build, create, or innovate. He only needed the opportunity and the raw materials. When he eventually made the life-changing decision to look west toward the bright lights of Las Vegas, he carried far more than mere youthful ambition. He carried years of intense daily practice, a strict sense of discipline shaped by gospel stages, and an unshakable confidence built in greasy Midwestern garages. The boy raised between engines and hymns was already rapidly transforming into someone completely unique. He was becoming an individual who could seamlessly blend rugged mechanical craftsmanship and theatrical performance into a single, cohesive public identity. That highly unique identity would later become globally recognized by millions of television viewers as the character known simply as the Count. But long before the pressures of national television, before the overwhelming weight of global fame, and before the inevitable business controversies, there was simply a young man working quietly in a garage. He was a dedicated craftsman learning the fundamental truth that if you take something apart carefully enough, you can always put it back together stronger than it ever was before. This core philosophy would guide him through the spectacular rise of his future business empire, acting as a foundational belief system when the world around him became chaotic. He understood that destruction was often just the very first step toward true creation, whether he was dealing with a rusted muscle car or his own complicated life. As Las Vegas beckoned, Danny brought this Midwestern work ethic to a city entirely built on illusion, gambling, and temporary spectacles. He knew that to survive in such an intense environment, he would need to stay entirely true to the dual roots his father had cultivated. The combination of gospel discipline and automotive grit gave him a distinct edge over traditional mechanics who lacked showmanship. He was entering a world where image was everything, and he was uniquely prepared to leverage his natural talents to make an unforgettable impact. Vegas was a city of performers, and Danny was, at his very core, a performer who just happened to know exactly how to rebuild an engine. The local automotive scene in Nevada was growing rapidly, filled with collectors, gamblers, and eccentric personalities who wanted their vehicles to stand out. Danny fit into the subculture perfectly, establishing himself as a reliable mechanic who possessed a rare eye for artistic flair and historical accuracy. He began taking on small customization jobs, working out of modest garages while quietly building a network of loyal local clients. Word quickly spread about the talented young guy from Ohio who could make a car look dangerous and beautiful all at the same time. He wasn't afraid to take creative risks that other shops avoided, often pushing the boundaries of traditional hot rod design. His early days in Las Vegas were defined by hustle, long hours, and an absolute refusal to compromise on the quality of his craftsmanship. He was slowly laying the groundwork for a business that would eventually bear his name and capture the imagination of car enthusiasts worldwide. Every vehicle he touched during this foundational period served as a rolling billboard for his growing skills, showcasing his ability to blend classic styling with modern performance. He understood that in a city like Las Vegas, people didn't just want a mode of transportation, they wanted a statement piece that turned heads on the strip. This realization transformed the way he approached his work, shifting his focus from basic mechanical repair to high-end conceptual automotive art. He began studying the history of custom car culture with a renewed intensity, drawing inspiration from legendary builders while infusing his own rock and roll aesthetic. The distinct look that would later define his brand, the flames, the skulls, the dark, aggressive tones, began to emerge in his early Vegas creations. He was building a reputation not just as a mechanic, but as an automotive visionary who could read a client's personality and translate it perfectly into metal and paint. This period of intense, untelevised hustle was crucial because it allowed him to make mistakes, refine his techniques, and understand the complex economics of running a custom shop. He was learning how to manage a crew, how to source rare components in the desert, and how to price his labor in a competitive market. It was a time of pure, unadulterated passion, driven by the simple joy of creating something magnificent out of a pile of discarded junk. He relished the long, quiet hours in the shop when the phones stopped ringing, and he could simply focus on the metal shaping beneath his hands. That authentic connection to the work would become his saving grace in the turbulent years that lay ahead, providing a grounding force when fame threatened to sweep him away. As his local reputation solidified, Danny began to realize that the traditional way of running an automotive business wasn't enough to satisfy his grander ambitions. He wanted to create a lifestyle brand, a destination where car culture, rock music, and personal freedom could all coexist under one roof. He started envisioning a larger operation, a grander stage where he could showcase his talents to the world on his own specific terms. The dream of Count's Customs was beginning to take shape in his mind long before the first television producers ever knocked on his door. He knew that to achieve this grand vision, he would need to step out from behind the shadow of the garage and fully embrace the theatrical side of his personality. The lessons he learned on those early gospel stages and at Carnegie Hall began to take on a brand new relevance as he plotted his next move. He understood that the mechanics of fame were not so different from the mechanics of an engine. Both required the right combination of timing, fuel, and spark to truly ignite. Danny was carefully preparing himself for that spark, ensuring that when the opportunity finally presented itself, he would be completely ready to ride it to the very top. He began actively cultivating his personal appearance, leaning heavily into the rugged biker chic aesthetic that felt most authentic to his personal tastes. The bandanas became a daily staple, a practical tool to keep sweat out of his eyes that quickly morphed into an iconic trademark. He allowed his hair to grow long, embraced the heavy silver jewelry, and surrounded himself with like-minded individuals who shared his passion for counterculture style. He was consciously transforming himself into a walking extension of his brand, a living advertisement for the unique lifestyle he was selling. This deliberate self-stylization was not an act of fake deception. It was a bold amplification of his true self, designed to command attention in a crowded room. Local television stations began to take notice of this colorful character who was making waves in the local automotive community, opening up new avenues for exposure. Danny seized these early media opportunities with both hands, recognizing the incredible power of television to accelerate his business goals. He began appearing in low-budget local commercials and late-night programming, using his natural charisma to charm viewers who had absolutely no interest in cars. He proved to be a natural on screen, possessing an easygoing, conversational delivery that made people feel instantly comfortable. He didn't come across as a slick, rehearsed salesman. He sounded like a passionate friend who genuinely cared about the craft. This early local media exposure was the perfect training ground, allowing him to hone his on-camera persona and learn the technical aspects of television production. He learned how to hit his marks, how to speak in concise, engaging soundbites, and how to maintain his energy levels through long, tedious shoots. He was quietly building the skills that would soon make him an international reality television star, all while maintaining his grueling daily schedule at the shop. The dual demands of running a business and managing a budding media career were intense, but Danny thrived under the heavy pressure. He felt a profound sense of momentum, a feeling that all the disparate threads of his unique life were finally coming together into something truly magnificent. His father's lessons about commitment and performance echoed in his mind, driving him to push through the exhaustion and keep moving forward. He knew he was on the verge of something historic, a breakthrough that would forever change the trajectory of his life and career. The local automotive community in Las Vegas could feel it too, watching as Count's Customs grew from a respected local secret into a dominant force. The shop was constantly buzzing with creative energy, attracting talented fabricators and painters who wanted to be part of Danny's rapidly expanding vision. He was building an exceptional team of loyal, skilled craftsmen who shared his dedication to excellence and his love for classic American iron. This crew would eventually become the core cast of his future television show, providing the essential support system he needed to scale the business. Danny was careful to cultivate a family-like atmosphere within the shop, fostering a sense of mutual respect and shared pride in every single build. He understood that a great custom car was never the product of just one person's labor. It required a symphony of different talents working in perfect harmony. This collaborative approach allowed Count's Customs to take on increasingly complex and ambitious projects, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible in the world of vehicle restoration. They were turning out jaw-dropping choppers, immaculate muscle cars, and radical custom creations that caught the attention of national automotive magazines. The national spotlight was creeping closer and closer, drawn by the undeniable quality of the work and the larger-than-life personality of the man running the show. Danny remained focused on the work, refusing to let the growing buzz distract him from his primary passion for building. He still spent as much time as possible on the shop floor. His hands covered in grease, directly involved in the design and execution of every major project. He knew that his credibility as a builder was the absolute foundation of his brand, and he refused to compromise it for cheap publicity. This commitment to authentic craftsmanship earned him the deep respect of industry veterans, establishing him as a legitimate authority in a field often filled with posers. As the decade drew to close, the stage was perfectly set for Danny Koker's grand entrance onto the national television landscape. He had spent years quietly paying his dues, mastering his craft and building an unshakable identity that was completely unique to him. He was no longer just a talented mechanic from Ohio. He was a seasoned Las Vegas showman with a world-class automotive empire at his fingertips. The world was about to discover what the locals had known for years, that the man in the black bandana was a force of nature. When the call finally came from network producers looking for an expert automotive appraiser, Danny was more than ready to step into the light. He knew exactly who he was, what he was capable of, and how to deliver a performance that audiences would never forget. The rise of the Count was about to begin in earnest, unleashing a wave of fame and success that would exceed his wildest dreams. Yet even as he stood on the precipice of global stardom, the quiet lessons of his childhood remained firmly rooted in his soul. He still carried the discipline of the gospel stage and the precision of the Midwestern garage, guiding principles that would keep him anchored through the storm. He knew that fame was a fickle creature, but quality craftsmanship and true authenticity were timeless values that could never be simulated. With this profound understanding, Danny Koker stepped forward to greet his destiny, ready to show the world what happens when passion meets opportunity. The transition from local business owner to national television personality would happen with breathtaking speed, catching many by surprise. But for Danny, it felt like the logical conclusion of a journey that had begun decades earlier on a bicycle in Cleveland. He had spent his entire life preparing for this specific moment, learning how to take things apart and put them back together stronger. Now, he was about to apply that exact same philosophy to the massive machinery of modern media and entertainment. He was ready to build something unforgettable, an enduring television legacy that would inspire millions of car enthusiasts around the globe. Part 2. The spectacular rise of the character known as the Count was a masterclass in modern branding and media strategy, even if it appeared completely organic to the average television viewer. Long before Danny Koker became a universally recognizable face across America, he understood an essential psychological truth that most traditional mechanics never stop to think about. He realized early on that image matters immensely in the business world, especially when trying to capture the public imagination. In a hyper-competitive city like Las Vegas, where visual spectacle is the primary currency, he consciously stepped in front of the local television cameras not merely as an automotive technician, but as a fully formed character. On late-night local television programming, he famously hosted low-budget B-horror movies dressed entirely in flowing black outfits, draped in an elaborate cape, and leaning heavily into a highly theatrical exaggerated accent as Count Cool Rider. It certainly wasn't a high-budget production by any stretch of the imagination, nor was it aired during primetime viewing hours, but the entire performance was highly deliberate, serving as an invaluable testing ground for his developing on-screen persona. Danny quickly learned exactly how to command public attention, how to seamlessly blend humor with a sharp rock-and-roll edge, and how to create a lasting persona that ordinary people would not easily forget. That theatrical late-night persona evolved naturally over time, eventually bleeding into his daily automotive work. The distinctive nickname The Count stuck permanently with him not because of some expensive corporate marketing strategy but because it genuinely fit his unique look and lifestyle. He was an intriguing mix of part classic rocker, part knowledgeable car historian, and part charismatic Vegas showman. He was never trying to look overly polished, corporate, or clean-cut for the cameras. Instead, he fully embraced his long hair, his signature bandana, and his dark, rugged clothing. This distinct aesthetic was not manufactured by television producers for a new reality show. It was an authentic extension of who he already was as an individual. And when the ultimate national television opportunity finally came knocking on his door, that raw authenticity mattered more than anything else. His major national media breakthrough came through his highly memorable guest appearances on the hit History Channel series Pawn Stars. Rick Harrison, the sharp co-owner of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop, frequently needed a legitimate automotive expert who could walk into a room, look at a vintage muscle car, and immediately know its precise historical story. Danny did exactly that, delivering flawless expert commentary every single time. He never hesitated during his on-screen vehicle appraisals, always speaking in highly specific, impressive technical terms. He talked authoritatively about production years, rare engine configurations, factory paint codes, and hard-to-find optional trims. He negotiated with sharp instinct, sometimes even passionately challenging Rick Harrison himself on vehicle valuations and estimated repair costs. Those lively, unfiltered exchanges gave television viewers something completely real to watch. Two strong, intelligent personalities testing each other's knowledge and business acumen. Television producers quickly recognized that Danny Koker was far more than just a typical guest expert who appeared for a brief segment. He possessed a massive on-screen presence, an undeniable star quality, and a highly active local business with a dedicated crew and high-stakes deals happening every single day. That vibrant real-world operation became the absolute foundation for his own dedicated spin-off series, Counting Cars, which centered entirely around the daily happenings at Count's Customs. When the highly anticipated show officially premiered, it immediately tapped into something much larger and deeper than standard car restoration programming. It masterfully showcased the thrilling element of raw financial risk that defines the custom car industry. Danny would routinely spot a rare vintage vehicle driving down a Las Vegas street, chase the driver down, throw out a bold cash offer on the spot, and trust his gut instinct completely. Sometimes those impulsive, high-stakes gambles paid off handsomely, resulting in breathtaking builds and massive profits. Other times, the sudden purchases created immense financial tension within the shop, pushing his crew to their absolute limits. Either way, the on-screen action felt unscripted and dangerous enough to keep millions of global audiences deeply invested week after week. The spectacular television ratings quickly reflected that intense emotional connection with the viewing public. The show expanded rapidly into international television markets, reaching millions of enthusiastic fans far beyond the desert borders of Nevada. Count's Customs transformed almost overnight from a respected local fabrication shop into a global tourist destination. Passionate tourists from all over the world routinely flew into Las Vegas hopping to catch a brief glimpse of the famous garage they had seen on their television screens. The shop's workforce grew exponentially to meet the demand, and the physical facility expanded significantly. The automotive builds became vastly more ambitious, the financial budgets grew larger, and the production deadlines became incredibly tight. With massive international television exposure came an influx of high-profile celebrity clients looking for unique rides. Famous musicians known worldwide for their larger-than-life stage personas wanted custom choppers and classic restorations that perfectly matched their rock-and-roll image. Elite professional athletes trusted Danny with rare, priceless pieces of automotive history, demanding flawless craftsmanship. Each successfully completed celebrity project strengthened his growing reputation as someone who didn't just restore cars, but gave them a unique soul and identity. Danny brilliantly leveraged that massive television visibility into a diversified business empire. He opened Count's Vamped Rock Bar and Grill, a highly successful venue that perfectly combined live rock music, biker culture, and vintage automotive decor under one roof. He also pushed his personal rock band, Count 77, into the national spotlight, embarking on extensive concert tour and releasing studio albums that actually entered the rock music charts. Official merchandise bearing the iconic Count's Customs logo became a massive, highly lucrative revenue stream for the business. The empire was widening at a breathtaking pace, making him an incredibly wealthy man. By the time Counting Cars reached its later seasons, Danny Koker wasn't just a mechanic on TV. He had successfully transformed into a massive, multi-million-dollar global brand. He reportedly owned an astonishing personal collection of more than 100 classic vehicles, including dozens of rare custom motorcycles. His estimated net worth climbed deep into the millions, solidifying his status as a self-made success story. From humble Cleveland garages to international television broadcasts, he had built something completely undeniable through sheer force of will and showmanship. But that immense, rapid success brought a completely different kind of psychological and operational weight to his shoulders. The more the global brand grew, the more overwhelming public expectations followed his every move. Television cameras constantly demanded high-energy, enthusiasm, and dramatic moments from him every single day. Dozens of employees completely depended on his personal leadership, creative vision, and business decisions for their livelihoods. Millions of adoring fans expected absolute consistency from his brand, refusing to accept anything less than perfection. Global fame did not simplify his life in any way. Instead, it massively magnified every single decision he made, both personally and professionally. And beneath the spectacular golden rise of the Count, the intense internal pressure was already quietly beginning to build to a dangerous breaking point behind the scenes. From the outside looking in, everything looked completely controlled, efficient, and wildly successful. A rare, battered muscle car would roll into the shop, and Danny would confidently circle it, pointing out its flaws and hidden potential. The intense financial negotiations would unfold smoothly in a matter of minutes, and a few weeks of edited television time later, the vehicle would emerge looking absolutely flawless. But the clean, satisfying rhythm that viewers saw on their television screens was not the actual rhythm of his real life. Behind those polished, triumphant vehicle reveals was a grueling, exhausting production schedule that rarely ever stopped to let him breathe. As the show gained massive global momentum, the television network's production demands intensified significantly. Filming blocks stretched long into the dark desert nights, exhausting both the cast and the crew. On some days, Danny would finally leave the offices of Count's Customs long after midnight, only to return to the shop before sunrise to review ongoing builds, approve intricate paint designs, and meet with demanding private clients. At the exact same time, he was personally overseeing the daily operations of Count's Vamped, coordinating tour schedules with his band, and handling endless promotional obligations. 18-hour workdays quickly became his routine reality, rather than the occasional exception to the rule. The severe physical toll of this relentless lifestyle gradually became visible to those paying close attention. Within a relatively short period of time, he dropped a highly noticeable, concerning amount of weight. Close friends and business associates publicly described him as looking significantly thinner, deeply fatigued, and physically drained. The vibrant, explosive energy that once felt completely effortless on camera began to look increasingly forced and strained. He rarely, if ever, took personal days or vacations, constantly driving himself to keep up with the machine he had created. Even when he wasn't actively filming a segment on camera, he was constantly preparing for the next shoot, managing shop drama, or reviewing financial metrics. Then came the inevitable, painful public authenticity debate that plagues almost every long-running reality television series. Reality television has always walked an incredibly thin, dangerous line between genuine documentation and staged entertainment, and Counting Cars was certainly no exception to this rule. Damaging rumors began circulating wildly across online automotive forums, suggesting that certain organic car discoveries on the streets of Las Vegas were actually arranged by producers ahead of time. A controversial internal production document was leaked online, suggesting that some client interactions and shop arguments were heavily guided by producers to heighten dramatic tension. Public engagement on major social media platforms dipped noticeably as longtime fans began questioning whether the spontaneity they loved was actually genuine. According to close production insiders, serious creative tensions grew rapidly between Danny Koker and the television network producers. He reportedly resisted, with intense passion, requests from executives to exaggerate internal shop conflicts or create completely staged disputes for dramatic effect. There were multiple tense moments when filming had to be paused entirely following heated, emotional disagreements behind closed doors. For a man who had built his entire professional reputation on raw instinct, honesty, and gut-driven business decisions, being asked to simulate fake emotion on camera felt like a direct betrayal of his core identity. To make matters worse, serious legal issues began compounding the immense pressure he was already facing. A highly publicized lawsuit tied to a botched Ford Mustang restoration brought in a wave of unwanted negative headlines for Count's Customs. A trusted former employee was later accused of massive financial mismanagement and misusing company funds, and the legal fallout reportedly included significant, unexpected tax penalties for the business. Years later, multiple private clients came forward to publicly accuse the shop of gross overcharging and unfulfilled contractual promises, filing a larger collective lawsuit that drew massive media attention. Even when these complex legal cases were eventually settled out of court, or the actual legal responsibility was shifted to rogue staff members, the public rarely distinguishes nuance. The sensationalized internet headlines simply read as constant controversy surrounding the Count's Customs name. Total legal fees reportedly climbed into the millions of dollars, draining vital financial resources from the operation. Corporate sponsors began to hesitate to associate with the brand, and online critics sharpened their tone daily. At home, the heavy weight of this public scrutiny followed him behind closed doors, affecting his personal life. His long marriage to Koker, a dedicated partner who had supported him long before any television fame arrived, reportedly endured serious emotional strain. Endless filming days, missed family milestones, and constant public scrutiny created an undeniable emotional distance between the couple. Casual observers claimed to have witnessed tense arguments between the two in public Las Vegas settings. Rumors of an impending separation circulated wildly across celebrity gossip websites, fueling intense speculation. Though neither Danny nor Corey rushed to the media to address the rampant internet speculation, their absolute silence on the matter only served to fuel the fire. The massive global brand that had once felt completely unstoppable now looked incredibly fragile, vulnerable, and teetering on the edge of ruin. The Count, who had for so long seemed much larger than life to millions of fans, suddenly appeared intensely human, overworked, under pressure, and surrounded by deep doubt. And then, without any dramatic series finale or official public explanation from the network, Counting Cars came to an abrupt, unceremonious end. For the millions of dedicated fans who had watched the show faithfully, the ending felt incredibly shocking, sudden, and entirely unfinished. For Danny Koker himself, however, the conclusion of the reality television series may have felt completely inevitable, a necessary relief from an unsustainable lifestyle. The cameras finally stopped rolling, leaving behind a quiet shop and a tired man who needed to figure out his next move. The sudden absence of the production crew changed the entire atmosphere of the garage, shifting it from a noisy television set back to a working business. Danny was left to pick up the pieces of his personal life and assess the financial damage caused by years of legal battles and intense overexpansion. Part 3. The final season of the show aired without any major network fanfare, grand goodbyes, or dramatic farewell episodes. There was just a quiet, sudden announcement that the series would not be continuing for another season on the network. For viewers who had closely followed Danny's life for nearly a decade, the ending felt incredibly abrupt, leaving countless unanswered questions about the future of the shop. Following the cancellation, Danny went completely silent on his personal social media accounts for weeks at a time, withdrawing entirely from the public eye. Deprived of official information, fans began to speculate wildly across internet forums and automotive blogs about what had happened. Some individuals firmly believed he had secretly sold the entire shop to a corporate conglomerate, while others thought he had retired from the automotive industry altogether. Concerning rumors quickly resurfaced regarding his physical health, as fans re-examined his older public statements about minor heart issues. The online speculation quickly spiraled out of control, morphing into highly exaggerated, grim narratives about his well-being. Meanwhile, official merchandise and rare memorabilia from the television show suddenly became highly sought-after collector's items. Authentic leather jackets he had once worn on screen began selling for thousands of dollars on online auction websites. At the exact same time, the staff at Counts Customs quietly removed major references to the reality television series from their official website, fueling even more conspiracy theories. Behind that long period of public silence, however, the actual physical shop in Las Vegas continued operating at full capacity. Without the daily presence of reality television cameras dictating strict completion deadlines for episodes, the shop's automotive projects actually became vastly more ambitious and complex. Restorations that used to be rushed through for a television reveal now stretched into thousands of hours of meticulous labor. Rare historic vehicles, including extremely high-value classic European sports cars and rare American concepts, were taken on quietly without any public press releases. Danny also made a highly strategic business shift toward focusing exclusively on high-end, wealthy private clients who demanded absolute anonymity. Exclusive, bespoke automotive builds completely replaced the manufactured television drama of the past decade. The core business model of Counts Customs evolved significantly during this quiet transition period. Instead of chasing television ratings and viral internet moments, Danny began chasing absolute mechanical precision once again, returning to his roots as a pure craftsman. At the exact same time, he began making massive, highly necessary personal changes in his private life away from the business. He finally addressed his declining physical health with immense seriousness, committing to significant weight loss through disciplined nutrition and positive lifestyle adjustments. Publicly, he began speaking with refreshing honesty about his personal commitment to absolute sobriety and accountability. This came after navigating those earlier painful controversies tied to controlled substances, legal battles, and their heavy consequences. He did not attempt to deflect the blame onto others, nor did he lash out bitterly at his online critics. Instead, he made a conscious choice to retreat from the toxic public spotlight and quietly rebuild his life from the ground up. For the first time in over a decade, the intense glare of the national television spotlight dimmed completely. And in that soft, dim light, a completely different kind of individual gradually emerged. This was not the theatrical character of the Count designed to entertain millions on reality TV, but rather Danny Koker as a real man trying to repair himself. By the time he officially turned 61 years old, the overarching narrative surrounding his life had shifted dramatically once again. Against all architectural odds, Counts Customs was reportedly generating significantly stronger, more stable revenue than it ever had during its final television seasons. High-profile custom automotive builds were selling out rapidly to global collectors before they were even fully completed in the shop. Creative collaborations with unexpected, highly influential names in both the music industry and modern automotive culture brought renewed, prestigious attention to his brand. But this time, the success was achieved entirely on his own terms, without a restrictive network contract dictating his narrative. He invested heavily in advanced fabrication technology and state-of-the-art machinery, expanding the shop's physical capabilities far beyond anything ever displayed on the television show. Large-scale historical restorations and incredibly rare collector commissions became the primary focus of the daily operation. The famous Las Vegas shop began operating much more like an elite, luxury restoration firm rather than a chaotic reality television set. Live rock music also returned to the absolute center stage of his life, providing a vital creative outlet. His band Count 77 significantly expanded their national touring efforts, performing major shows at prestigious venues and consistently drawing massive, enthusiastic crowds. For Danny, playing live music was no longer just a fun side project or a clever marketing tool to promote his garage. Instead, it had transformed into a profound form of personal therapy, emotional redemption, and core identity. He began speaking openly and publicly during his concerts about his past struggles with intense stress, anxiety, addiction, and the long road to recovery. Instead of denying his past mistakes or hiding from his legal battles, he chose to open up and reframe them as essential learning experiences. He openly acknowledged the devastating personal cost of overnight global fame, admitting to his audiences that the immense pressure had nearly broken his spirit completely. For many longtime fans, this raw, unfiltered honesty made him far more relatable and human than he had ever appeared during his highly edited television days. His long marriage to Corey stabilized significantly after that extended period of extreme professional strain, as both partners recommitted to their shared life. He made the conscious decision to step back from certain daily business responsibilities at the shop, delegating tasks to trusted managers to protect his relationship. He reduced his overall daily workload, focused heavily on maintaining his physical health, and began generously supporting automotive preservation initiatives. At 61, Danny Koker looks remarkably different from the man global television viewers first met over a decade ago. He is noticeably leaner, significantly quieter, and far more deliberate in both his speech and his daily actions. Some casual fans who happen to spot him in Las Vegas today even claim that he looks almost unrecognizable compared to his old television self. But perhaps what those casual observers are seeing is not a tragic story of loss or decline at all. Instead, they are witnessing a beautiful, powerful process of human evolution and personal reclamation. Because the truth is, the man beneath the bandana never really needed the television cameras to validate his worth or his talent. He simply needed to regain absolute control over his own life, his own business, and his own unique story. Danny Koker successfully built a massive global empire, nearly lost it all to the crushing pressures of fame, and then quietly rebuilt it stronger than ever before in total silence. His journey serves as a powerful reminder that it is always possible to take your life apart, examine the broken pieces, and put yourself back together stronger than you were before the world tried to break you.